Everything you've been taught about consciousness is backwards. You think your awareness sits inside your skull, passively observing an external world, but that's the greatest scientific misconception of our time. The ancient Hermetics declared, all is mind, and quantum physics just proved them right. The double-slit experiment reveals something extraordinary. Particles exist as waves of infinite possibility until the moment you observe them. Your consciousness literally collapses potential into reality. Think of it this way: consciousness isn't the software running on your brain's hardware. Consciousness is the software, and physical reality is just the hardware it's operating. Every quantum physicist knows this, yet somehow it never makes it into mainstream education. Right now, as you focus on these words, you're wielding the fundamental force that shapes reality itself. Particles are responding to your attention. Possibilities are crystallizing into experience. And you're programming the quantum field whether you realize it or not. You've been unconsciously controlling reality your entire life. The question is, are you ready to learn how to do it deliberately? What I'm about to share with you might sound like science fiction, but it's documented, peer-reviewed science that's been quietly revolutionizing our understanding of human consciousness for decades. Remember how we talked about consciousness being the fundamental operating system of reality? Well, here's where it gets absolutely fascinating and measurable. Your body isn't just flesh and bone. It's a sophisticated electromagnetic broadcasting system that extends several feet beyond your physical form. And for the first time in human history, we have the instruments to prove it. The Institute of Heart Math has been using magnetometers, the same devices that detect magnetic fields around the Earth, to map what they call the human biofield. What they discovered will fundamentally change how you see yourself. Your heart alone generates an electromagnetic field that's 60 times stronger than your brain's field and can be detected up to 8 feet away from your body. Think about that for a moment. Every person you've ever stood near, every conversation you've had, every room you've entered, you were literally broadcasting and receiving electromagnetic information the entire time. But here's what gets really interesting. Dr. Roland McCraty's research team at HeartMath discovered that when two people are within conversational distance, their heart rhythms begin to synchronize. They're not just talking to each other, their biofields are actually in training, creating a shared electromagnetic environment. It's like having two radio stations suddenly broadcasting on the same frequency. The implications are staggering. That instant connection you feel with certain people, that sense of unease around others, the way some individuals seem to light up a room while others drain the energy from it. These aren't just psychological phenomena, they're measurable electromagnetic interactions happening in real time. Now, ancient traditions have known this for millennia. They just called it different names: the aura, prana, chi, the subtle body. What's remarkable is how precisely their practices align with what modern biofield research is now confirming. When Tibetan monks perform specific mudras, when yogis practice pranayama breathing, when shamans use rhythmic chanting, they're not just following tradition. They're deliberately tuning their biofield coherence using techniques that create measurable changes in their electromagnetic output. Dr. Konstantin Korotkov at St. Petersburg University developed something called gas discharge visualization, essentially a modern version of Kirlian photography that can measure the photon emissions around living organisms. When he studied experienced meditators, he found their biofields were dramatically more coherent and expansive than control groups. The difference was so pronounced it looked like comparing a clear radio signal to static. Here's the crucial part. Your biofield exists in one of two primary states. When you're stressed, anxious, or caught up in negative emotional patterns, your field becomes chaotic and contracted. The electromagnetic patterns become erratic, like a radio transmitter with a damaged antenna. But when you're in what researchers call heart coherence, states of appreciation, compassion, or focused calm, your field becomes highly organized and expands outward. Think of it this way: your biofield is like a sophisticated radio system. When it's coherent, you're broadcasting clear, strong signals that can positively influence the quantum field around you. When it's chaotic, you're transmitting static that not only affects your own biology, but creates interference in the energy environment around you. The research on this is absolutely fascinating. Dr. Glenn Ryan discovered that coherent heart rhythms can actually influence DNA structure at a distance. When subjects generated genuine feelings of love and appreciation, they could cause DNA samples to unwind and rewind in test tubes several feet away. No physical contact, no chemical intervention, just coherent biofield emissions affecting matter at the molecular level. Your immune system responds dramatically to biofield coherence as well. Studies show that just 5 minutes of heart-focused breathing can increase immunoglobulin A levels, your body's first line of defense against pathogens, by up to 240%. Your biofield isn't separate from your physical health. It's the energetic foundation that determines how well every system in your body functions. But it goes beyond individual biology. Dr. Dean Radin's experiments at the Institute of Noetic Sciences have shown that groups of people can create collective biofield effects that influence random number generators and other sensitive equipment from significant distances. When people synchronize their heart rhythms through group meditation or focused intention, they create what researchers call field effects that extend far beyond the immediate area. This is why certain spaces feel sacred, why some gatherings have an electric atmosphere, why you can walk into a room and immediately sense the emotional tone even before anyone speaks. You're picking up on the collective biofield signature of everyone present. The ancient mystery schools understood this completely. They designed their temples using specific geometric proportions that would amplify coherent biofield states. They used particular sound frequencies, sacred geometry, and group practices specifically engineered to create optimal field conditions for expanded consciousness. Now, I want to be completely transparent with you about something. Some of the most advanced biofield manipulation techniques, the specific frequencies, the precise breathing patterns, the geometric configurations that create the strongest field effects, these are too sensitive to share publicly on a platform like YouTube. But if you're serious about mastering these principles, I've made them available through our free Insights Academy newsletter, where serious practitioners can access this deeper material. Plus, right now, subscribers receive a complimentary copy of the Kabbalion, which contains the foundational principles that tie all of this together. The link is in the description below. What's becoming clear from decades of research is that your personal biofield isn't isolated, it's connected to a vast web of consciousness that links all living systems. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every intention you set creates ripples in this field that extend far beyond what you might imagine possible. The question isn't whether you're affecting the quantum field around you, the science proves you absolutely are. The question is whether you're doing it unconsciously, creating random static and interference, or whether you're going to learn to tune your biofield deliberately, becoming a conscious participant in the larger symphony of consciousness that connects us all. When Einstein first encountered the implications of quantum entanglement in the 1930 seconds, he famously dismissed it as spooky action at a distance. He couldn't accept that two particles, once connected, could instantly affect each other across any distance, even if separated by entire galaxies. The speed of light was supposed to be the ultimate cosmic speed limit, yet here was nature seemingly laughing at that fundamental rule. What Einstein found unsettling, ancient Tibetan monks would have recognized immediately. For over 1,000 years, they've taught that all consciousness exists within what they call the Dharmakaya, a unified field where individual minds are like waves in an infinite ocean. When you affect one wave, ripples spread throughout the entire system. The Vedantic tradition describes this same principle as Indra's net, and cosmic web where each intersection holds a jewel that reflects every other jewel in the network. Here's what's remarkable. Modern quantum physics has now validated what these contemplatives intuited through direct experience. When two particles become entangled, measuring the spin of one instantly determines the spin of its partner, regardless of the distance between them. This isn't just theoretical anymore. We've built quantum computers and communication systems based on this principle. But the implications extend far beyond particle physics. Lynn McTaggart's intention experiments have documented something extraordinary. Groups of people focusing coherent thoughts can measurably affect physical systems hundreds or thousands of miles away. In one controlled study, participants in London successfully accelerated the growth rate of plants in a laboratory in Arizona. The plants receiving focused intention grew 23% faster than the control group. Water crystallization experiments have shown similar results. Samples exposed to coherent group intention form more complex, symmetrical crystal structures than those left uninfluenced. This isn't wishful thinking or placebo effect. We're talking about measurable changes in physical matter through focused consciousness at a distance. The mechanism appears to operate through the same quantum entanglement principles that Einstein found so troubling. Your consciousness doesn't end at your skull, remember. We established that your biofield extends well beyond your physical body. When you project coherent, emotionally charged intention into the quantum field, you're not just programming your personal reality bubble. You're contributing to what researchers call the collective reality matrix, the shared informational field that shapes our common experience. The Institute of HeartMath has documented how coherent heart rhythms can be detected in the electromagnetic fields of people standing several feet away. But the entanglement effect goes much deeper than proximity. Remote viewing studies conducted by Stanford Research Institute showed that trained observers could accurately describe distant locations they'd never visited, simply by focusing their attention on specific coordinates. The statistical accuracy rates were so far above chance that the CIA funded these programs for over 20 years. Consider the Global Consciousness Project at Princeton University. They've placed random number generators around the world that should produce completely random sequences. Yet during moments of global emotional coherence, like September 11th, the 2004 tsunami, or major sporting events, these machines begin producing non-random patterns. It's as if collective human consciousness creates ripples in the quantum field that affect even electronic devices. This explains phenomena you've probably experienced, but dismissed as coincidence. You think intensely about someone you haven't spoken to in months, and they call within hours. You wake up with a strong intuition that something's wrong with a family member, only to discover they were having a crisis at that exact moment. You walk into a room and immediately sense the emotional tension from an argument that happened earlier. These aren't psychic superpowers, they're natural expressions of quantum entanglement operating through consciousness. The difference between people who regularly experience these connections and those who don't isn't special ability. It's the quality and coherence of their mental states. Random, scattered thoughts create minimal field effects. Your consciousness is like a radio transmitter broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Simultaneously, the signal gets weak and unclear. But focused, emotionally charged intentions operate like a laser beam. All the energy concentrates into a coherent wave that can travel vast distances and create measurable effects. The Tibetan practice of Tonglen, sending and receiving compassion, trains this exact capacity. Practitioners learn to generate specific emotional states and project them toward particular individuals or situations. Advanced meditators report being able to sense the emotional and physical states of people thousands of miles away, and even influence healing processes through focused intention. Prayer works through this same mechanism. Studies of intercessory prayer show statistically significant improvements in patient outcomes when people pray for specific individuals, even when the patients don't know they're being prayed for. The key factor isn't religious belief, it's the coherence and emotional intensity of the focused intention. You've probably already influenced distant events without realizing it. That time you were desperately hoping for a particular outcome and it manifested in an unlikely way. The moment you felt overwhelming love for someone and they later told you they experienced an unexpected surge of well-being at that exact time. These aren't coincidences, they're evidence of your consciousness participating in the quantum entanglement network that connects all things. The crucial distinction is this: most people experience these effects unconsciously and reactively. Mastering quantum entanglement principles allows you to participate consciously and intentionally in reality creation. Instead of random thoughts scattered like buckshot, you learn to focus your intentions like a precision instrument, creating specific effects in the quantum field that ripple outward to influence both your personal reality and the collective experience we all share. The ancient mystics understood this truth intuitively. Now, quantum physics has given us the scientific framework to understand how consciousness operates as a fundamental force in the universe, not separate from physical reality, but intimately entangled with every particle, every field, every possibility waiting to collapse into manifestation. Here's something that completely changed how I understand reality. Everything in the universe is vibrating, not metaphorically, literally. Your coffee cup, the chair you're sitting on, the air around you, all of it is in constant motion at the atomic level, each with its own unique frequency signature. And here's where it gets fascinating. Your thoughts and emotions are part of this vibrational spectrum too. When I first encountered Dr. Rollin McCraty's research at the HeartMath Institute, I was skeptical. They were measuring the electromagnetic signatures of different emotional states, and what they found was staggering. Emotions like frustration, anger, and fear create chaotic, incoherent wave patterns in your biofield, the same electromagnetic signature we discussed earlier. But emotions like gratitude, appreciation, and genuine care produce smooth, coherent sine waves with remarkable mathematical precision. Think of it like this: your emotional state is essentially a radio transmitter. Just as your radio picks up the station you're tuned to, your biofield resonates with whatever frequency you're broadcasting. When you're operating from fear, you're literally tuned into the fear station of reality, and that's exactly what you'll receive more of. The principle of resonance doesn't care about your intentions. It responds to your actual vibrational output. I've seen this play out countless times. Sarah, a client of mine, was stuck in a cycle of financial stress. Every day, she'd wake up anxious about money, spend her commute worrying about bills, and her nervous system would be firing in pure survival mode. Her biofield was broadcasting chaos, and chaos is exactly what kept showing up: unexpected expenses, missed opportunities, difficult people. But here's what's crucial to understand. This isn't about positive thinking or forcing yourself to feel good. It's about recognizing that emotional states have measurable frequencies that interact with the quantum field around you. The research on this is becoming undeniable. Dr. Bruce Lipton's work on epigenetics shows how emotional states directly influence gene expression. When you're in chronic stress or fear, your cells literally receive different instructions than when you're in states of appreciation or calm. Dr. Masaru Emoto's water crystal experiments revealed how different emotional frequencies change the molecular structure of water. And remember, your body is roughly 70% water. What's remarkable is how ancient cultures understood this principle intuitively. The Egyptians had Ma'at, the concept that maintaining inner harmony was essential for navigating life successfully. They knew that when your internal frequency was aligned with cosmic order, external circumstances would reflect that alignment. Chinese medicine has always recognized that emotional disharmony creates qi stagnation, which manifests as both physical illness and life obstacles. These weren't primitive superstitions, they were sophisticated understandings of vibrational physics. Let me give you the emotional frequency spectrum as I understand it. At the bottom, you have what I call the chaos frequencies: shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, anger, and pride. These emotions create erratic, turbulent biofield patterns that attract unpredictable, often challenging circumstances. People operating primarily from these frequencies experience life as a series of problems to solve, obstacles to overcome, and battles to fight. As you move up the spectrum, you reach the coherence frequencies: courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace, and what some call enlightenment. These emotional states generate smooth, mathematically coherent wave patterns in your biofield. People operating from these frequencies consistently report increased synchronicities, unexpected opportunities, and what others might call good luck. Here's a concrete example from my own experience. For years, I held deep resentment toward a former business partner who I felt had betrayed me. Every time I thought about expanding my business, I'd unconsciously return to that frequency of betrayal and mistrust. My biofield was broadcasting "people can't be trusted," and sure enough, I kept attracting unreliable team members and difficult clients. The shift happened when I realized I wasn't punishing him with my resentment. I was programming my own reality to reflect that vibrational pattern. The moment I genuinely shifted to gratitude, not forced positivity, but actual appreciation for the lessons that painful experience had taught me, everything changed. Within weeks, I connected with people who became long-term collaborators. Opportunities that had been invisible suddenly became obvious. My external reality had literally reorganized itself to match my new vibrational signature. This is where most people get confused. They think this is about pretending to feel good or suppressing negative emotions. That's not how vibrational physics works. Suppressed emotions still broadcast their frequency. They just do it unconsciously. The key is developing what I call emotional awareness, recognizing what frequency you're actually operating from moment to moment. Your nervous system is constantly scanning your environment and your internal state, then broadcasting that information through your biofield. When you're genuinely grateful, your heart rhythm becomes coherent, your brain waves synchronize, and your electromagnetic field extends further and becomes more organized. This coherent field pattern literally attracts coherent experiences, people who resonate with that frequency, opportunities that match that vibration, circumstances that reflect that level of organization. The implications of this are staggering. Every interaction you have, every decision you make, every circumstance you encounter is influenced by the vibrational frequency you're broadcasting. Change your frequency, and you change what you attract. This isn't wishful thinking, it's applied physics. Start paying attention to your emotional frequency throughout the day. Notice what thoughts and feelings you're broadcasting, and observe how your external reality reflects those internal patterns. The universe isn't responding to your words or your intentions, it's responding to your actual vibrational output. Master that, and you master your reality. For centuries, they called it superstition. Ancient texts describing reality manipulation through consciousness were dismissed as primitive mythology. But here's what's fascinating: modern neuroscience is now proving that these ancient practitioners understood something profound about how consciousness actually works. The Hermetic tradition, dating back to ancient Egypt and Greece, developed incredibly sophisticated techniques for what they called mental transmutation, the ability to change reality through focused consciousness. The Emerald Tablet speaks of correspondence between mental and physical realms, while the Kybalion outlines 7 principles of reality manipulation that sound remarkably similar to what quantum physicists describe today. What's remarkable is how precisely these ancient magicians understood the relationship between mental states and physical reality. They developed elaborate practices involving visualization, emotional elevation, and energetic alignment, not because they believed in fairy tales, but because they had discovered something that worked. They were essentially running controlled experiments in consciousness research, thousands of years before we had the technology to measure what they were doing. Dr. Richard Davidson's groundbreaking research at the University of Wisconsin changed everything. When his team put Tibetan monks, practitioners of ancient contemplative techniques, into fMRI scanners, they discovered gamma wave activity levels that were literally off the charts. We're talking about brainwave coherence patterns 700 to 800% higher than baseline. The monks weren't just relaxed, their brains were operating in states that mainstream neuroscience didn't even know were possible. But here's where it gets really interesting. These elevated brainwave states create measurable changes in the electromagnetic field around the body. The HeartMath Institute has documented how specific emotional states, particularly what they call heart coherence, generate electromagnetic signatures that extend several feet beyond the physical body. Ancient Hermetic practitioners called this the sphere of sensation. They were describing biofield effects that we can now measure with sensitive magnetometers. Dr. Joe Dispenza's research team has taken this even further. They've shown that when people engage in what are essentially modernized versions of ancient visualization practices, their brains begin firing in the same neural networks as if they were actually experiencing those visualized events. The brain literally cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. Ancient magicians understood this principle intimately. They called it assumption of the God form, a technique where practitioners would visualize themselves embodying specific qualities until their entire nervous system responded as if those qualities were real. The neuroscience behind why this works is fascinating. Dr. Sarah Lazar at Harvard Medical School used brain imaging to show that just 8 weeks of meditation, a core component of Hermetic practice, literally changes brain structure. The hippocampus, associated with learning and memory, grows thicker. The amygdala, which processes fear and stress, actually shrinks. These aren't temporary changes, they're measurable alterations in brain architecture. But ancient practitioners took this understanding much deeper. They recognized that emotional states weren't just internal experiences, they were energetic broadcasts that influenced the probability fields around them. Modern research is confirming this insight. Studies at the Institute of Noetic Sciences have shown that people in heightened emotional states can influence random number generators at statistically significant levels. The effect is small but consistent, suggesting that consciousness does indeed interact with quantum probability fields exactly as Hermetic texts described. The ancient principle, as above, so below, is now understood through fractal mathematics and holographic universe theories. What happens at the quantum level mirrors what happens at the macro level. Your mental and emotional states create interference patterns in the quantum field that ripple outward, influencing probability outcomes in your immediate environment. Ancient magicians called this the law of correspondence. They intuited what physicists like David Bohm would later describe as the implicate order underlying physical reality. Modern practitioners who understand both the ancient wisdom and contemporary science are achieving remarkable results. They're not just visualizing randomly, they're using specific techniques to achieve the precise brainwave states that research shows are most effective for influencing external reality. They combine hermetic emotional elevation practices with biofeedback technology to optimize their biofield coherence. They use ancient ritual structures, which were actually sophisticated technologies for achieving altered states while monitoring their effects with modern measurement tools. Dr. Lynn McTaggart's Global Consciousness Project has demonstrated that when groups of people engage in focused intention using these combined ancient modern techniques, they can create measurable effects on physical systems thousands of miles away. Water crystallization studies show that focused intention can alter molecular structure. Random event generator experiments consistently show statistical deviations when consciousness is applied with proper technique. The key insight that ancient Hermetic practitioners understood, and that modern science is now validating, is that consciousness isn't produced by the brain. It's a fundamental field that the brain accesses and modulates. When you achieve the specific mental and emotional states that these traditions develop techniques for accessing, you're essentially tuning your consciousness to frequencies that have greater influence over quantum probability fields. This is why ancient practices emphasize such precise control over mental and emotional states. They weren't engaging in wishful thinking, they had discovered the optimal conditions for consciousness to influence material reality. The combination of focused attention, elevated emotion, and energetic coherence creates what researchers now call non-local consciousness effects. If you want to apply these principles effectively, start by understanding that you're working with measurable scientific phenomena that happen to have been discovered by ancient researchers using different methodologies than modern labs. The wisdom traditions weren't primitive, they were sophisticated consciousness technologies that we're only now beginning to understand through contemporary scientific frameworks. The most powerful approach combines both ancient wisdom and modern understanding, using time-tested techniques enhanced by contemporary insights into exactly why and how they work. Now that we understand how Hermetic principles align with modern neuroscience, let me share something that took me years to piece together from scattered research papers, ancient texts, and conversations with consciousness researchers who've spent decades studying this phenomenon. There's a specific four-step protocol that bridges the gap between understanding these concepts intellectually and actually implementing them in your daily reality. I call it Reality Programming Protocol, and it's essentially the operating system that mystics, inventors, and visionaries have used throughout history, often without fully understanding the mechanisms behind their success. What's fascinating is that when you examine the lives of people like Tesla, Einstein, or even modern entrepreneurs who seem to manifest extraordinary results, you find they all unconsciously followed variations of this same sequence. The difference now is we can understand exactly why each step works and how to practice it deliberately. Step 1. Still the noise. Your brain's default mode network is constantly generating what researchers call mental chatter, that endless stream of thoughts, worries, and internal dialogue that keeps you locked into existing patterns. Dr. Marcus Reichel's groundbreaking research at Washington University showed that this network consumes about 60% of your brain's energy when active, essentially drowning out the subtle signals we need to detect for conscious reality programming. The first step involves systematically quieting this mental static through specific breathing techniques and focused attention practices. But here's what most meditation teachers don't tell you: it's not about stopping thoughts entirely. It's about creating what neuroscientist Dr. Judson Brewer calls effortless awareness, where the brain shifts from its default scattered state into what's measured as increased alpha and theta wave coherence. When you breathe in a 4-4-4-4 pattern, 4 counts in, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, you're directly influencing your vagus nerve and creating measurable coherence between your heart rhythm and brain waves. The HeartMath Institute has documented how this simple technique shifts your entire nervous system from survival mode into what they term physiological coherence within just 3 to 5 minutes. During this state, your brain's prefrontal cortex comes online more fully, while the amygdala's stress response quiets down. You've essentially created the optimal neurological conditions for focused intention to influence your biofield and, through field effects, your external environment. Step 2. Focus coherent intention. Here's where the neuroscience gets really interesting. When you visualize a specific outcome with clear detail, your brain activates the same neural pathways as if you were actually experiencing that reality. Dr. Alvaro Pascual-Leone's research at Harvard showed that people who mentally rehearsed piano exercises showed nearly identical brain changes to those who physically practiced. But coherent intention goes deeper than simple visualization. You're essentially programming your nervous system to recognize and respond to opportunities that align with your desired outcome. Your reticular activating system, the brain's filtering mechanism that determines what you notice in your environment, begins highlighting relevant information and possibilities that were always there but previously invisible to you. The key is specificity combined with sensory richness. Instead of vaguely hoping for success, you create a detailed internal experience of your desired reality. What does it look like, sound like, feel like? What are the specific circumstances, relationships, and conditions? The more detailed and consistent your internal representation, the more precisely you're programming your nervous system to recognize and create those exact conditions. Professional athletes have used this principle for decades. Olympic swimmers like Michael Phelps would mentally rehearse every race, including potential problems and how to overcome them. This wasn't positive thinking, it was systematic nervous system preparation that gave him measurable advantages in actual competition. Step 3. Charge with elevated emotion. This is where most people's attempts at conscious manifestation fall apart, because they try to create from states of lack, desperation, or need. But here's what the research shows. Elevated emotions like gratitude, joy, and love create specific heart rate variability patterns that dramatically amplify your biofield's coherence and strength. Dr. Roland McCraty's work at HeartMath has documented how these elevated emotional states create measurable electromagnetic signatures that extend several feet beyond your physical body. More importantly, when you combine focused intention with these elevated emotions, you're essentially broadcasting a coherent signal that influences quantum field fluctuations around you. Think about it this way. If you're trying to create a new reality from the emotional state of not having it, you're energetically reinforcing the experience of lack. But when you generate the emotions you would feel if your desired outcome were already real, genuine gratitude, excitement, fulfillment, you're aligning your entire energetic signature with that reality. The practical technique involves recalling times when you felt profound gratitude or joy, then amplifying those feelings while maintaining your focused intention. Dr. Joe Dispenza's research shows that people who master this combination can create measurable changes in their gene expression within just 8 weeks of consistent practice. Step 4. Detach. This final step trips up more people than any other because it seems counterintuitive. After putting so much focus and energy into your intention, the last step is to completely let go of attachment to the outcome. Quantum mechanics provides the scientific framework for understanding why this works. The act of anxious observation, constantly checking, worrying, or trying to force an outcome, keeps the quantum system in a state of superposition, preventing the collapse into a specific reality. It's like repeatedly opening the oven door while baking bread. The constant interference prevents the natural process from completing. Detachment doesn't mean not caring about your outcome. It means trusting the process you've initiated and allowing space for the manifestation to occur. Dr. Dean Radin's research at the Institute of Noetic Sciences has shown that intention effects are strongest when people set their intention clearly, then engage in unrelated activities rather than continuously focusing on the desired outcome. Historical examples abound. Edison would formulate a clear intention for solving a specific problem, then take naps or engage in completely different activities. His subconscious mind would continue processing while his conscious mind stepped aside, often leading to breakthrough insights upon awakening. The practical application involves what I call conscious forgetting, deliberately shifting your attention to other engaging activities after completing steps 1 through 3. You've planted the seed. Now you allow it the space and time to grow, without constantly digging it up to check on progress. The integration process. When you practice this 4-step protocol consistently, something remarkable happens. Your nervous system begins operating from elevated states as your baseline rather than survival-based reactions. You start noticing synchronicities, opportunities, and resources appearing in ways that seem almost magical but are actually the natural result of your increased coherence and expanded awareness. The key is treating this as a skill that develops over time rather than expecting immediate dramatic results. Start with small, specific intentions and gradually work up to larger life changes as you build confidence and proficiency in the process. Most people skip steps or rush through them, wondering why they don't see results. Each step is essential and builds on the previous one. Master this sequence, and you'll have access to the same technology that mystics and visionaries have used throughout history to create extraordinary realities. Your DNA isn't the fixed blueprint you've been told it is. It's more like a vast library with millions of books, and your thoughts and emotions determine which books get pulled from the shelves and which remain locked away forever. Glenn Ryan's groundbreaking experiments at the HeartMath Institute shattered everything we thought we knew about genetic expression. When he placed human DNA samples in test tubes and exposed them to different emotional states from trained participants, something extraordinary happened. DNA from people experiencing coherent emotions like gratitude, compassion, and love caused the genetic material to literally unwind and relax. The double helix opened up, making previously inaccessible genetic programs available for activation. But here's where it gets fascinating and terrifying. When the same DNA was exposed to incoherent emotions like frustration, anger, or fear, it tightened up like a fist. The genetic coils contracted so severely that beneficial genes became completely inaccessible. We're talking about genes responsible for immune function, cellular repair, longevity, and even enhanced cognitive abilities, all locked away by emotional states. The Russian bioenergetics research took this even further. Dr. Vladimir Poponin discovered that human DNA creates what he called phantom DNA effects. The genetic material continues to influence quantum fields even after it's been removed from the body. When researchers projected specific intentions toward DNA samples, they could measure actual structural changes at the molecular level. This wasn't subtle stuff. We're talking about measurable, reproducible alterations to the fundamental code of life itself. Think about what this means for your daily reality. Every time you sink into stress, worry, or resentment, you're literally sending chemical signals that cause your DNA to contract and shut down. The stress hormone cortisol acts like a genetic prison guard, keeping your most powerful biological programs locked away. Your cells receive the message that you're under threat, so they prioritize survival over thriving. Genes for creativity, healing, and expanded awareness go dormant. But when you shift into coherent emotional states, genuine gratitude, heartfelt appreciation, or what researchers call heart coherence, everything changes. Your DNA responds by opening up like a flower. Suddenly, genetic programs that have been dormant for years come online. Your immune system strengthens, your cellular repair mechanisms activate, and neuroplasticity genes begin expressing at levels that would make neuroscientists weep with joy. Dr. Bruce Lipton's epigenetic research revealed the mechanism behind this phenomenon. Less than 2% of disease is actually caused by genetic defects. The other 98% comes from environmental signals that determine which genes get expressed. And consciousness, your thoughts, beliefs, and emotional states, represents the most powerful environmental signal of all. Here's the practical reality. You're not a victim of your genetics. You're the programmer. Every meditation session, every moment of genuine gratitude, every time you consciously shift from fear to love, you're literally rewriting your biological software in real time. I've witnessed this firsthand with people who've achieved what medical science would call impossible. A woman with a genetic predisposition to Huntington's disease who reversed her symptoms through daily coherence practices. A man who activated dormant stem cell production at age 70 through specific consciousness techniques. These aren't miracles. They're the natural result of conscious genetic programming. The mechanism works through what scientists call signal transduction pathways. Your thoughts create neurochemical cascades that travel through your bloodstream and directly influence genetic expression. When you practice the 4-step reality programming protocol we covered earlier, you're not just changing your external circumstances, you're upgrading your biological hardware to match your expanded consciousness. Consider this: your DNA contains genetic programs for abilities that most people never access. Enhanced intuition, accelerated healing, extended lifespan, increased intelligence. These aren't supernatural gifts reserved for a chosen few. They're dormant potentials waiting for the right emotional and mental signals to activate them. The research on telomeres, the protective caps on your chromosomes that determine cellular aging, provides stunning evidence of consciousness affecting genetic expression. Studies show that people who practice meditation and maintain coherent emotional states have significantly longer telomeres than their chronologically matched peers. They're literally aging slower at the genetic level. But here's what excites me most about this discovery. It connects directly to the ancient Hermetic principle that consciousness is the fundamental creative force. What the mystics knew intuitively, we can now prove in laboratories. Your awareness isn't separate from your biology, it's the director of your biological orchestra. The practical implications are staggering. Instead of accepting genetic limitations, you can consciously activate genetic potentials. Instead of aging according to a predetermined timeline, you can influence the rate and quality of your cellular regeneration. Instead of being at the mercy of inherited weaknesses, you can literally rewrite your genetic story. Start tonight with this simple protocol. Spend 10 minutes before sleep in a state of genuine gratitude for your body's intelligence and healing capacity. Feel appreciation in your heart, not just your head. This coherent emotional state sends direct signals to your DNA, activating repair and regeneration programs while you sleep. Your genetic code isn't your destiny, it's your raw material. And consciousness is the sculptor that determines what gets created. Every thought, every emotion, every moment of awareness is an opportunity to activate dormant genetic potentials and literally evolve your biology in real time. The question isn't whether you can influence your genetic expression through consciousness. The science has already proven that you can. The question is, what genetic story do you want to write? Your brain is running the same movie on repeat, and most people never realize they're not the director. They're just watching reruns of their unconscious programming play out in three-dimensional reality. The default mode network in your brain, that's the neural network that fires when you're not actively focused on something, operates like a broken record player. Neuroscientists have discovered this network burns about 60% of your brain's energy, constantly running background chatter that sounds remarkably similar day after day. I'm not good enough. Money is hard to come by. Relationships always end badly. These aren't just thoughts. They're electromagnetic broadcasts, transmitting specific frequency patterns into the quantum field. Here's what's fascinating. Your brain literally becomes addicted to its own chemical productions. When you think that familiar thought about not being worthy of success, your hypothalamus releases the exact cocktail of stress hormones and neurotransmitters it's been brewing for years. Your body gets a hit of cortisol, adrenaline, and other familiar chemicals. And just like any addiction, it starts craving that chemical signature. Even when those feelings make you miserable, your nervous system has become dependent on them. Dr. Joe Dispenza's research team found something remarkable when they studied people trying to change their lives. Brain scans showed that when participants attempted to think new thoughts or feel elevated emotions, their brains initially resisted as if they were being threatened. The neural networks associated with their old identity would fire more intensely, trying to pull them back into familiar patterns. Your brain literally treats positive change as a survival threat because it disrupts the chemical addiction cycle you've been running. But this programming doesn't just come from inside your head. You're swimming in collective reality fields created by mass consciousness, and most people unconsciously tune into these frequencies like a radio picking up the strongest signal. Walk into any office building, and you can feel the collective field of resignation, stress, and just getting by. Spend time around people constantly complaining about politics, and notice how your own thoughts start gravitating toward problems and conflicts you weren't even thinking about an hour earlier. The media understands this quantum field effect better than most consciousness researchers. They're not just reporting news, they're broadcasting specific emotional frequencies designed to keep you locked in states of fear, anger, or helpless fascination. Every time you consume content that triggers strong emotional reactions, you're literally entraining your nervous system to those frequency patterns. Your DNA activation protocols from the previous section become irrelevant if you're constantly flooding your system with stress chemistry from external programming sources. Breaking free requires becoming conscious of the exact moment when automatic programming kicks in. Most people live their entire lives in reaction mode, bouncing between trigger and response without ever catching that split second of choice that exists between stimulus and reaction. But in that microsecond gap lies your power to consciously direct your reality creation process. Start by identifying your specific trigger patterns. Maybe it's checking your bank account and immediately feeling that familiar knot of financial anxiety. Maybe it's seeing certain people succeed and automatically feeling inadequate. These triggers are actually gifts because they show you exactly where your unconscious programming is strongest. When you feel that familiar emotional charge, pause and ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? What frequency am I broadcasting? Here's a pattern interruption technique that rewires neural pathways in real time. The moment you catch yourself in an old emotional loop, physically change your body position. Stand up, take 3 deep breaths, and consciously generate a different feeling. Not positive thinking, actual feeling generation. If your old pattern is feeling powerless about money, spend 60 seconds genuinely feeling grateful for your body's ability to heal itself, or appreciating the engineering marvel of the device you're watching this on. You're literally training your nervous system to access different chemical states on command. The key is repetition with conscious intention. Your old patterns got installed through thousands of unconscious repetitions. New patterns require deliberate practice until they become automatic. Neuroscientist Dr. Rick Hanson's research shows it takes about 20 seconds of sustained positive experience to begin encoding new neural pathways, while negative experiences get encoded almost instantly. This isn't unfair, it's just how the brain's survival mechanisms work. But once you understand this, you can work with your neurology instead of against it. Installing new programming means becoming intensely disciplined about your internal state, especially during the first hour after waking and the last hour before sleep. These hypnagogic states are when your brain operates in theta frequencies, making it most receptive to new programming. Instead of immediately checking your phone and downloading everyone else's reality, spend those precious minutes consciously generating the emotional signature of your desired reality. The biggest challenge comes when you start changing while everyone around you remains locked in old patterns. Your family, friends, and co-workers are unconsciously invested in keeping you the same because your transformation threatens their own limiting beliefs. They'll unconsciously test your new patterns, trying to pull you back into familiar dynamics. This isn't malicious, it's just how social reality fields maintain coherence. Protecting your field doesn't mean isolating yourself from others. It means becoming so anchored in your new frequency that you can interact with lower vibration environments without getting pulled down. Think of yourself as a tuning fork vibrating at your chosen frequency. When you're solid in that vibration, you actually help others access higher states instead of getting dragged into their chaos. The neuroplasticity research is clear. Your brain remains changeable throughout your entire life, but only with consistent, conscious practice. Dr. Michael Merzenich's studies show that focused attention combined with emotional engagement creates the strongest neural rewiring. This is why the 4-step reality programming protocol from Section 6 works so effectively. It combines precise mental focus with elevated emotional states, creating optimal conditions for installing new unconscious programming. Start tonight with this simple practice. Identify one automatic thought pattern that creates unwanted experiences in your life. Catch yourself the next time it arises, and consciously choose a different thought-feeling combination. Your future self is counting on these small moments of conscious choice to break free from the unconscious reality programming that's been running your life. Remember, every master was once a disaster who refused to give up. Your current reality is just the accumulation of past programming. Change the programming, and you change everything. Now that we've explored how to break free from unconscious programming patterns and understand how your thoughts literally rewrite your genetic code, we need to address the practical mechanics of consciously directing your biofield. Because here's what most people don't realize: your energy field isn't some mystical concept that you either have or don't have. It's a trainable, measurable biological system that responds to specific techniques, just like building muscle or learning a musical instrument. The research coming out of places like Heart Math Institute shows us something remarkable about advanced meditators. When they hook these individuals up to sensitive electromagnetic measuring devices, their biofield signatures look completely different from untrained people. We're talking about coherent, organized wave patterns versus the chaotic, scattered emissions most of us produce. The difference is so dramatic that researchers can identify an experienced practitioner within seconds of measurement. What creates this coherence? It starts with understanding that your heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in your body, about 60 times greater than your brain. But here's the key insight. When your heart rhythm becomes coherent through specific breathing patterns, it synchronizes your entire nervous system and creates what scientists call psychophysiological coherence. This isn't just feeling relaxed, this is your biofield operating at peak efficiency. The technique is deceptively simple but requires precision. Breathe in for 5 counts, hold for 2, Exhale for 5 counts, hold for 2. But the crucial element is breathing through your heart center while maintaining an authentic feeling of appreciation or gratitude, not fake positivity, genuine appreciation for something specific in your life. Within 3 to 5 minutes of this pattern, sensitive individuals can actually feel their energy field expand and stabilize. I've worked with students who initially couldn't sense their own biofield at all, and within weeks of consistent practice, they're reading the energetic states of people across the room. The progression is predictable once you understand what you're developing. First, you learn to recognize when your own field is coherent versus scattered. Coherent feels like a gentle, steady pressure extending about arm's length around your body. Scattered feels jumpy, contracted, or like static electricity. The Taoist tradition has been mapping these dynamics for thousands of years through their understanding of qi cultivation. Their microcosmic orbit technique involves consciously circulating energy up your spine during inhalation and down your front during exhalation. What's fascinating is that modern biofield researchers have measured actual changes in electromagnetic activity along these exact pathways during the practice. The ancient maps correspond to measurable energy flows. But let's get practical about what expands versus contracts your field, because this awareness becomes your navigation system for reality manipulation. Pay attention to how your energy responds to different people, environments, and thoughts throughout your day. You'll notice that certain individuals cause your field to naturally expand, till you feel more energized, creative, and optimistic around them. Others create immediate contraction. You feel drained, scattered, or defensive. This isn't about judging people as good or bad. It's about recognizing energetic compatibility and learning to maintain your coherence regardless of external circumstances. Advanced practitioners can walk into a hostile environment and not only maintain their field integrity, but actually influence the entire space toward greater coherence. The yogic approach offers specific techniques for this kind of energetic mastery. The chakra system, when understood correctly, provides a framework for balancing different aspects of your biofield. But forget the New Age oversimplifications. Traditional yogic texts describe chakras as energy processing centers that can be consciously activated and balanced through specific breathing patterns, visualizations, and physical postures. For example, when your heart chakra is functioning optimally, you naturally generate what researchers call heart coherence, that organized electromagnetic pattern that influences everyone around you. Studies have shown that when one person in a group achieves heart coherence, it measurably affects the heart rhythm patterns of others in the vicinity. This isn't metaphysics, it's documented biophysics. Shamanic traditions approach energy work from a different angle but arrive at similar practical techniques. Power animal retrieval, for instance, involves connecting with specific archetypal energies that strengthen particular aspects of your biofield. The process requires entering an altered state where you can perceive and interact with these energy patterns directly. Here's a progressive exercise sequence for developing your energetic sensitivity. Start with the basic coherence breathing while sitting quietly for 10 minutes daily. Once you can reliably achieve that steady, expanded feeling, begin practicing field awareness in different environments. Notice how your energy responds in nature versus crowded spaces, around different people, during various activities. Next, experiment with conscious field expansion. While maintaining coherence, imagine your energy field extending further outward with each exhale. Advanced practitioners can consciously expand their influence to fill entire rooms or outdoor spaces. This isn't imagination, it's a trainable skill that produces measurable effects on sensitive individuals nearby. The protection aspect is crucial because developing energetic sensitivity can initially make you more susceptible to external influences. The key is learning to maintain an open but discerning field. Think of it like having a highly efficient filter system. You remain receptive to beneficial connections while automatically deflecting chaotic or draining energies. Group coherence creates some of the most dramatic effects on physical reality. When multiple individuals achieve synchronized coherence, the combined field strength increases exponentially rather than additively. Random number generators become less random, plant growth accelerates, and even crime rates in the surrounding area have been documented to decrease during large group coherence events. The most important skill to develop is real-time energetic adjustment, the ability to consciously shift your field state moment by moment based on what the situation requires. This becomes your primary tool for reality manipulation because your biofield is constantly interacting with and influencing the quantum field around you. Common obstacles include trying too hard, expecting dramatic results immediately, and getting caught up in complex techniques rather than mastering the fundamentals. The most powerful practitioners I've encountered have spent years perfecting basic coherence before moving to advanced applications. Master your foundation first. Everything else builds from there. Your energy field is your interface with quantum reality. Learning to consciously direct, it gives you direct influence over the probability patterns that shape your experience. This isn't theory anymore. It's practical technology for conscious reality creation. We've covered a lot of ground together in this exploration of quantum reality manipulation, and now I want to paint a picture of what your life actually looks like when you make this fundamental shift from unconscious reaction to conscious creation. Because what we're really talking about here isn't just personal development, it's a complete revolution in how human beings relate to reality itself. For most of human history, people have operated from what I call the victim paradigm. In this old way of being, life happens to you. Your boss is difficult, traffic makes you late, the economy affects your finances, other people's moods determine your emotional state. You're essentially a pinball bouncing between circumstances, reacting to whatever the external world throws at you. Your energy field remains chaotic, unmanaged, constantly being shaped by outside forces rather than radiating from your own conscious intent. But when you master the principles we've discussed, when you truly understand that your biofield is constantly interfacing with the quantum field, and that your internal state literally shapes the probability waves around you, everything changes. You move into what I call the creator paradigm, where life happens through you. In this new way of being, synchronicities stop being rare coincidences and become your normal operating system. You think about someone you haven't spoken to in years, and they call that afternoon. You need a specific piece of information for a project, and you overhear exactly what you need in a coffee shop conversation. Opportunities don't just randomly appear, they align with mathematical precision because your coherent energy field is literally organizing the quantum possibilities around your focused intentions. Your relationships transform because you're no longer trying to get energy from other people, you're generating it from within and radiating it outward. People respond to this completely differently. They feel more relaxed around you, more authentic, more themselves. Conflicts that used to drain you for days resolve quickly because you're not adding your reactive energy to the situation. You become what I call a reality stabilizer, someone whose coherent field actually helps organize the chaos in other people's energy systems. Your health optimizes naturally, not because you're following the perfect diet or exercise routine, but because your nervous system spends most of its time in coherent states rather than stress responses. Your body's innate healing intelligence can finally function the way it was designed to. You sleep better, think more clearly, and have sustained energy because you're not constantly hemorrhaging life force through unconscious reactions. But here's what most people don't realize about this level of mastery. It comes with profound responsibility. When you understand that your internal state is literally contributing to the collective reality field that everyone else is living in, you can't just use these principles selfishly. Every time you choose coherence over chaos, presence over reactivity, love over fear, you're not just improving your own life, you're upgrading the entire human operating system. Look at individuals throughout history who operated from this level of consciousness. Gandhi didn't defeat the British Empire through military force, and he held such a coherent field of non-violent resistance that it literally reorganized the probability structures around Indian independence. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't just give speeches prior. He maintained such a powerful vision of racial equality that it pulled that future possibility into manifestation despite enormous opposition. These weren't just charismatic leaders, they were master reality creators who understood how to use their consciousness to shift collective outcomes. And this is exactly what our species needs right now. Most of our global challenges, environmental destruction, political polarization, economic inequality, these aren't really resource problems or policy problems, they're consciousness problems. They're the inevitable result of billions of people operating from reactive, fear-based states, creating chaotic interference patterns in the collective field. But imagine what becomes possible when even a small percentage of humanity masters these principles. When enough people are generating coherent fields instead of chaotic ones, when enough people are responding to life from wisdom rather than reacting from programming, when enough people understand that their internal state is their contribution to collective reality, that's when we see what researchers call phase transitions in human consciousness. Now, I know some of you might be feeling overwhelmed by the implications of what I'm sharing. Maybe you're thinking, this sounds too good to be true, or what if I try this and fail, or what happens to my relationships with people who think this is all nonsense? These are natural concerns, and they're actually signs that you're taking this seriously. The key is integration, not perfection. You don't need to become a quantum physics master overnight. Start with the basics we've covered: managing your attention, recognizing your reactive patterns, practicing coherence techniques for just a few minutes each day. Build your confidence through small successes. Notice when you maintain your center during a stressful conversation. Celebrate when you catch yourself before falling into an old emotional pattern. Acknowledge when you choose presence over reactivity. As for your relationships, here's something beautiful I've observed. When you stop trying to convince other people of these ideas and simply embody them, you become living proof of their effectiveness. People don't need to understand the quantum mechanics to recognize that something has shifted in you. They feel it in your presence. They see it in your responses to challenges. And often, they start asking what's different about you. During difficult times, and they will still come, remember that mastery isn't about avoiding challenges. It's about meeting them from a different level of consciousness. When you understand that every difficult situation is actually the universe giving you an opportunity to practice conscious creation under pressure, setbacks become training grounds rather than evidence that this stuff doesn't work. What I've found is that as people develop genuine mastery of these principles, they naturally want to help others discover their own creative power, not in a preachy, evangelical way, but through genuine service. Because when you truly understand that we're all connected through this quantum field, helping others awaken becomes as natural as breathing. This brings us to the ultimate truth that ties everything together. The external world truly is the internal state made visible. Every relationship, every circumstance, every challenge and opportunity in your life is reflecting back to you exactly what's happening in your consciousness. When you master your internal reality, when you become conscious of your thoughts, intentional with your emotions, and coherent in your energy field, your external circumstances automatically begin to align with this new internal organization. This isn't positive thinking or wishful manifestation. This is applied quantum mechanics. This is consciousness technology. This is the natural result of understanding how reality actually works and learning to work with it consciously rather than unconsciously. The revolution from reaction to creation starts with you, in this moment, with the next choice you make about where to place your attention and how to respond to whatever life presents. Every moment is a new opportunity to practice conscious creation. Every interaction is a chance to contribute coherence rather than chaos to the collective field. If this video resonated with you and you're ready to step into your role as a conscious reality creator, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."